Just in time for Valentine's Day, Scott and I talk about love and lust in the new era. Keep streaming.
I don't just talk stuff and repeat stuff. I'm living this stuff.
And you can thank me for covering your astro.
Leading out loud. Leading out loud. We're leading out loud.
What a fade out. Welcome back, everyone, to Leading Out Loud, LOL. I am astrologer Christopher Witecki, known as the Sensei to Serious Joy, and I am with...
Scott Cruz, Psychic Medium. How you doing, guys?
You can see we actually rehearsed that. Today we're talking about love, love and lust in the new era. Just because it's coming up, it's kind of an interesting topic, especially when you're psychic and you're an astrologer and you know the future. The question is, will robots replace relationships, or will the rise of the divine feminine discernment save us from ourselves? We'll be talking about that and diving deep on all these juicy topics. But first, we got to talk about the astrology and what's going on. It's been some wonky energy. Maybe you should kick it off this week. I'll bring in the planets. How do you feel?
I mean, we've been saying wonky for a long time, right? I kind of feel like it's like a deja vu. Like, we have a good report, and so, but I mean, we're going week to week, so of course, we're kind of calling up like the momentum of good energy, good vibes. So, I do feel like kind of for me personally, and I've been seeing a lot of other people kind of snapping out of a haze a little bit. A tired haze, funk in a sense. So, I think that we're going to start seeing kind of more liveliness, and Valentine's Day next week. So I feel like there's even a preparation of love. That's why we're doing this topic today. So I think people might be feeling that, and whether or not you're partnered or coupled or not, I mean, just the love of what you're doing, a love of people around you. So even with the craziness going on in the world right now, I do find people and seeing people kind of grabbing onto their family, the people who are the closest to them, and kind of nurturing those relationships. So love doesn't have to be romantic; it can just be nurturing the love that you have. So I see a manifestation of that, kind of an essence explosion of that essence in a sense. What do you think?
Well, I want to ask you one more question on what you're picking up on, which is just, you get a lot of women who come in to chat on Thursday nights on your show. Where are they? What's the theme? Is it like, will he come back? A lot of times you see themes watching Scott's show. Like, two of them will be like, will I get the guy back? Or two of them will be like, will I ever find love?
Right.
What is it?
Well, especially with my clients too, like I've been helping that's why the title of my show tonight is The Art of Letting Go, because there's been a lot of, letting go, not just the relationships that you're in, but sometimes people need to let go of the circumstances that they were in. So, I mean, that's very freeing of course too, because a lot of people, wonder, well, why am I blocking love, or why am I not, meeting love? And it's like, because you're still holding on to the circumstance, even though you let go of the person or of the person, the circumstance of being cheated on, or the circumstance of, or not getting what you want, like you're still carrying that. So it's really been, even I would say, more of a month of that letting go, and the art of doing so, and that's what flow is, right? And I say, we don't let go, we have a hard time letting go because we don't know what to grab onto next. And so I've been guiding a lot of my clients into seeing psychically, but also helping them intellectually understand what they need to be grabbing onto now so they can let go.
Interesting. From a client perspective, it varies, but a lot of it is letting things go or moving on. A lot of moving on stuff where they knew already and they separated. And I think that's due to, honestly, Saturn in Pisces direct. And we'll talk about that. Let's talk about the weather going on right now this week as well. So overall, would you say, how are people's moods the last week and a half? I mean, we've been off for a week, but how have been the moods been of people you're talking to?
Vocal. I mean, haven't you seen people being very vocal? I think too, there's been a huge sense of like integrity, so now when people like find their integrity, they may not, or even confidence, they may not express it. It might come out very sloppy or abrasive. And so I do find people's trying to find that, integrity and voice of confidence, but sometimes if you don't get it right, it might come out as arrogant, might come out as, like I said, abrasive. But I think if we allow ourselves to find out what that voice of integrity is, then the mood wouldn't swing so much. It'd be more of a balanced, neutral, tone.
Well, it's interesting because Jupiter's at 11 degrees for the entire month of Aquarius. Wow. And so that's a huge deal. That's at 1 degree, same. That's a huge deal because it was really laying down some pipe there for something. And 11 is integrity. It's integrity. It's according to astrology, integrity is when you love yourself first and you accept loving people only in your life, or loving situations only. So the astrology is definitely saying you got to get integrity, but that's sort of also in the mind. It's kind of, getting the mind on a certain track of, what is good and what is not good. I think we can do anything now. We have a lot more freedom in
Yeah.
this newer era. And
Yeah.
so people, we're not being shamed by churches anymore like we were.
That's
And
right.
even the media is like shaming us for new stuff, but it's weird, like 6 feet apart, but it's not shaming us for who we date, So now we're kind of free and we don't know what to think and how to think. There's that going
True.
on. But then there's Saturn direct in Pisces, which is a biggie because up until now, Saturn has been on the bottom half of Pisces, which is all your past stuff, all your relationships that were dysfunctional, all your past life lovers. And so Saturn going direct now and moving out of that space means we're done with the low half. And
Yeah.
now people are sensing, I'm seeing that people are sensing that they have someone coming. I
Right.
just feel around the corner. I just feel that something's going to happen. And
Right.
I think that Saturn in the high degrees of Pisces moving now, I think it's at 18 today, if I'm not mistaken. So if you were destined to fall in love with someone, meet them on Earth, I think those are being arranged right now. And that's kind of, I think people can feel it too.
Yeah.
Kind of get,
Yeah. Well, and people are feeling the confidence of self too, because of course that's
yeah.
what attracts the love, and so people feel the confidence of self. But when you find that confidence, that sometimes you're a little sloppy with it too. So I would tell people, don't let the sloppiness discourage you from really embracing the outwardly expression that you're finding now. So because it's that awkwardness, it may not appear to be awkward to other people, might feel uncomfortable because you're not used to it. So I would say allow yourself to go with that uncomfortable energy of being self-expressive, because that's where you start attracting and meeting the realness of people around you. You attract the realness, so many people might find that sloppiness endearing, actually.
I mean, for me, I'm happy. I'm myself finally. I'm at a point where I'm just going to be authentically myself and not make apologies and let the law of attraction decide. Like, if you're not into it, great. Someone else down the line, I'm sure. Whereas before I'd be worried about presentation and that sort of thing. Now I'm just who I want to be. And so I've definitely felt that difference going on. But Pluto in Aquarius is a big part of it because Pluto now is at 2 degrees Aquarius. It was at 1 when we last had our last show. And Pluto is forcing you to love yourself now. You have to love yourself. And now Pluto is saying you have to honor your own feelings. So I think there's a lot of cracks in the pavement of certain relationships because, well, now that I'm loving myself, I'm not putting up with your bullshit. Like you're starting to draw that line. Plus, Pluto gives you the strength to draw the line. I'm also seeing the craziest thing, Scott. I'm seeing Aquariuses start to get closer to people. It's crazy. I never thought I'd see it before. Yeah, seriously. No, I'm dead serious. I've never felt more close to Aquarius in my whole life than ever. I mean, really, and I'm surrounded by the bastards. So it's really, really weird. Yeah. But no, seriously. I mean, the old joke when I was growing up as an astrologer was, if you meet some old guy who's never been married in a bar, he's an Aquarius. I mean, like basically still single, not going to take on. But I see Aquarius is getting into traditional relationships.
Very true.
Or not being afraid of commitment, always wanting their freedom. So
True.
that's huge. I think that's Pluto that's changing that. Another thing going on, since we're on this topic, is the South Node in Libra when it wrapped up. Now it's done. It's now in Virgo. But when it was in Libra, we were letting go of old relationship patterns. Like, I don't want to be this to myself, and I don't want to be in these types of relationships. Then it goes into Virgo, and it realizes it, right? Virgo's like, okay, we made all these rules, let's make it happen. So I think you're seeing people, move out, move in, kind of thing. A lot of people bacheloring up, I know, in like certain houses, whereas before they would have lived alone. So that's interesting too. I'm seeing just some interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I for one too. I mean, as an aqua, like I'm really solidifying my own personal relationship too, and and as an aqua, I can feel a lot of us feel it's still because we feel heard. Right, because we always kind of like the awkward ones, kind of like off the beaten path, and so I think that people are now in the essence of Aquarius too, where they're starting to adapt a lot of Aquarius, traits in a sense. So we feel heard, so we feel safer now to like invest. We still feel safer to to be vulnerable with people in that nature because we feel understood now. So as an aqua, I could say that's the main reason. We're feeling a lot more understood. I feel like. This sounds arrogant as an aqua, but like finally people have caught up to us. Finally. No, I'm just kidding. But not kidding.
You are, you're not. Well, I think aquas have always been kind of strange in what they brought up, or what they were focused on. And like literally you could have a conversation at a dinner table and it goes to the aqua and everyone's like, like no one knows how to take it from there. Like, because they introduced a certain topic, and like we're like, no one has a comment. We have no comment. What do we do? But I think you say feeling safer. That's Pluto. Because what Pluto does is give you this strength. It's really weird. It gives you a machismo. It gives you ability to sort of just draw a line and not budge. And so I think that's what's making Aquas straighten up a bit in their chair. And there's a long ways to go too with that, as far as that's concerned.
Right.
For the general population, we're having a gnarly week. It really is the switching of timelines is what's happening. I mean, taking like a 5,000 foot view just through April, from what me and my team can tell, we're coming into a new spiritual timeline, which is happening tonight, by the way. The North Node is going to actually conjunct Neptune tonight, and that's basically go time. It's sort of like the clock striking, at midnight, and Cinderella losing her clothes. It's a moment where it all starts to transform. And what that's saying is like, okay, it's time to go for that destiny. Some destiny that I think we set up before we were born. I think it's a surprise for a lot of people, by the way, of what's going to happen next. But we can say that the old life is definitely over. It's like not here anymore.
Yep.
That's tonight. And then we have a bunch of stuff like the Mars will trine Saturn, which is just our ego getting on the same side as our control. So we kind of realign our power inside of ourselves. And then we have the Sun square Saturn. That's huge because that's where our heart and our control issues sort of go back and forth with each other.
Right.
Figure out like, well, who's going to be the boss, right? And I think we're giving the power back to the Sun, because Saturn had taken it, being the way Saturn is. And then next week, we have a full moon in Leo at 24 degrees. And 24-degree Leo is either the fall in love or the get divorced. It's a full moon. And I think what's going to happen is people will be over a type of relationship, if not a specific one.
Right.
Where it's like, I am done with these da-da-da-das, right? My heart is not in it anymore. And that begins the great race, I think, for where we go. And that's going to be a gentle but very powerful full moon. Like, it'll be gentle while you have it, but then the havoc it's going to wreak after, it's going to be pretty intense, I think.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the integrity too, because can you push into like separating from a paradigm that no longer represents you? That's like, you feel good about that, and when people actually really let go of the things they know that they let it go with a person or circumstance, there's this like, even though there's an emptiness there, it feels good. It feels like, I have the space now, it's empty, but I want to protect it now. And so that's where the integrity really manifests. And that's where the confidence manifests. You're like, well, this is my space. I'll do what the hell I want to do with it. I'm not letting anybody step in the space without, inspection. Right. And so, yeah, I really think that this is the time now where people will be starting to feel that. And it's not just on the romantic levels. It's really on like people in general who you bring in your life, or maybe what you're tolerating or not tolerating with people. So we've been talking about boundaries for a while, and this is kind of a spiritual trend to talk about boundaries, but I think like this is the emphasis, now of those boundaries, but kind of naturally setting those boundaries with intention, but also with like an organic approach without having to try to set the boundaries, right? Because you're in tune to the separation, you're in tune to letting go, you are conscious of what you're grabbing onto, which is letting you let go, and you kind of naturally setting those boundaries, and it feels very empowering. It feels, and that's the flow, we talk about all the time,
I can second that. I mean, I haven't had fear, since I came back from my Chiron return, which is crazy. Okay. But then secondly, I have no problems telling people no. I used to be so worried about telling a person no, and now I have no problem with it. Saying that's not going to work. No, that's not going to work. Just really drawing some lines, and people sort of testing that as well. But I think Pluto and Capricorn is what gave us that power. We got over our power issues about should I or shouldn't I, or will it ruin the relationship if I do,
right.
Complicated situation that you might have, or, you have someone who's a lover and you work with them or something like that. Now we're kind of clear about the boundaries. Like, no, that wasn't appropriate. This is appropriate. So life is a little less messy. But at the same time, I find that people are doing more daring stuff, which we'll talk about, probably because they feel strong and general life is not messy. So now they feel empowered to go mess it up. Right.
That's the aqua vibe.
Oh yeah.
That's the aqua vibe right there. So yeah, I mean, that's very fitting. Very fitting. Yeah,
we're feeling it. Well, so as we move into this year, what I was getting to is we're changing our story, and that's what's happening right now tonight. Literally is that it's like, okay, I'm on a new story now. For most people, the first story was you're a fuck up, you're damaged, you have trauma. And I think a lot of our relationships, by the way, are based on trauma. I mean, I'm interested to watch the charts now of people coming in, but all the couples that I've read up until this point, almost all of them are together because they helped each other with their problems. It wasn't love. It wasn't they're on the same path. It was that, she's good at what he's an idiot at, and he's a really smart at what she's an idiot at. And so it was sort of a trade, and I'll teach you and you teach me. And I've seen a lot of those kind of co-teaching relationships falling apart in the last 18 months. So it's just like, I'm bored now. I've gotten what I need out of it, and so did they. So this next story, I think, is with a lot of new people. I'm seeing in some cases, like, I do readings everywhere. So in some cases, I'm seeing Atlantis love reuniting. And that's going to be a huge, interesting theme. Like, people have not seen each other since Atlantis or Mu, and they're getting reacquainted, which is interesting because that was the last time we had this Age of Aquarius energy. So, so I think there's a lot of new. And then going into Aries, we're going to birth a new ego. So a new ego that is defending other things, fighting for other things, wanting other things. Yeah.
I mean, that's integrity again, right? So because again, you actually understand what's valuable, right? Because, and we'll get into this even too later on, but sometimes we have desires that are attached to trauma responses. And we think because it's a trigger from a trauma response, I feel that, so I want that. It's like, no, you're wanting that in spite of your trauma, or that desire has been manifest or spawned from trauma. So therefore you think you want it, but it's actually a pacifier. So I think it's important for us now to understand, if I've been pacifying myself, thinking, creating the illusion that it's what I want, or is it really this really true representation of what I'm wanting and what I'm feeling? So I think it's really important for us to understand the difference of like what you're really feeling versus what you're knowing. And the knowing comes from the soul. And I think that I've seen a lot of people, especially I've been through this too, where the desires that I had were like, so I need that desire, I need that, but it was just trying to pacify past trauma or deprivation of the past. And it was not serving of my highest interest or my soul. So that's where the integrity comes in. And I think what you're saying is very correct, Christopher, because people are going to be able to distinguish that now. How freeing is that to distinguish? I've actually had this desire, I've been chasing this, but I actually really don't want. No wonder why it hasn't been happening for me. I really didn't want it. That's freeing. It's freeing. It's scary. It's scary because, holy crap, like, how long have I doing this for? Or what do I want next? I said, if you're in a position to figure out what you want next, you're at a clean slate. That's good.
Yeah, that is actually. I'm never in that position. I'm always on that path, but I do see what you're saying in the sense that and I've had it even in my life, which I will not share, but things like turned you on, things that kind of got you hot, they're just suddenly a nothing burger. It's like, where'd that happen?
Right.
I think that's Pluto and Aquarius too. I think Pluto is the planet of sex, right? It is literally what gets your pants off. It's literally what makes you naked. And it exposes us to be naked and be more authentic with ourselves. A lot of that sexual twisted stuff, which we'll talk about here after the commercial, was being, I think, cleaned up with Pluto and Capricorn. Being tied up, being this, being that. A lot of that, I think, was Pluto and Capricorn saying, okay, let's bring this to the surface. For people who had it, they got extremely intense and passionate for that moment of 15 years. It's a long time. But now I have a feeling it's kind of fading away, because they've worked through those issues of bondage and control. Anything around control or bondage is Capricorn.
And to segue, just before we go to the commercial, someone just asked, like, what is it when you have a strong sexual connection with someone that you shouldn't be with? There's so many different variables to that. One, you just feel safe to express your own sexuality with this person without being emotionally vulnerable. So you want to look at saying, well, I can be very primal with this person. Am I allowing myself to be emotionally disconnected because I can express this with a person I shouldn't be with? And when you're saying someone you shouldn't be with, that just means that there's no emotional connection. So you're reserving your emotional expressions, right? And there are other situations where you are exploring sexually what you're wanting. So this is not what I want, but they're my tool to figure out what I want sexually to open up the sexual expression. So I would say in situations like that, ask what are you really getting out of that, because there is something you're getting out of it, but what is it, and what are you trying to evolve from that? And we'll get into the lust, more of the lust aspects after the break.
Yeah, actually, this is a good time for it. Speaking of lust, I don't know if you know this, Scott, but about how many years ago was it? 14 years ago. Created this thing called Secrets to Birthdays, a Love and Lust Report, which is incredibly accurate because I actually figured out a way to shoot so many videos that our system could fit them together and make a one long reading for you that's about 20 minutes. We now put it on sound because I look so young, it's kind of goofy. Kind of goofy. It's like, yeah, that's sensei. So we put it to sound, but here's the thing. It is so accurate. I dare you to go down to Serious Joy. If you sign up for $3.99 Serious Joy, you can have it for 30 days for that price. You can cancel anytime, although I wouldn't if I were you. And you can watch your Secrets Love and Lust Report. Now, here's what people do. I'm going to actually give you the hack. What'll happen is a girl will come here because we're watching the stuff on the internet. A girl will come to our site and she will run like 40 love and lust reports because she'll change her date of birth in the system. It's all legit. So you can actually, actually get a report on anybody you want. And people tell me it's like embarrassingly accurate. It comes free with the service for $3.99. So we thought we'd push that because it's the weekend and we're heading into Valentine's Day.
Nice.
Yeah. And I talk about love and lust and the difference between them. It's interesting. They were talking about that. So good job to our producer, Erica, because that particular video, I was honing in on certain aspects of the chart, which are really telling, of who you attract, why you attract. And one of them, I'm not going to give away the secret, but you know how you always end up like dating your students? Have you done that?
Yep.
Not literally, but
yes.
yeah. Well, I'm just like coaching. I'm like teaching. I'm like showing around, like some of the, and they're just learning, right? If they want to, kind of thing. Well, there's a part in your chart that reveals why that is and the type of person you attract. Yeah. So in that particular case, you're attracting what you're based on your talent and their need. Yeah. It's interesting.
That's great. It's awesome.
All right. $3.99, seriousjoy.com. All right. Let's dive into the fun stuff. Here's the energy I think as we go about. Let's talk about where love and lust is going in itself. Let's start there. Where do you see love and lust going psychically with your third eye? And let me chime in with astrology here around the corner.
Well, as far as like love and lust, that's what we were saying before. I think people can be able to just fully distinguish the two and where their heart is really coming from with that.
Right.
Because I think people tend to like demonize lust a little too much because everything has a duality to it. You can lust for someone and also be in love with them too, but also lust can be very, very degrading. Can be very, like you're crossing a boundary. So there's a duality to everything. So I think first is we need to understand the definition of love and lust and how the two can actually work together because we do have a human, primitive energy that's part of 3D reality that we also need to express to evolve the soul too. So we can't be like, oh, no lust, only love. And so I think that we're going to understand the integration of two, not demonizing the lust energy because, we have a beautiful body. I mean, we look at our sexes and the body's a beautiful thing and a beautiful expression that can help to express our sensuality. So I think we'll be able to decipher the differences and maybe start, like we said before, chiseling out where these responses of trauma come from and understand those aren't desires, they're cover-ups, right? And really determine that I'm in love with this, I have a lust for this, and understanding kind of be more well-rounded with that. But I think the demonization of lust is only looking at the negative side of lust, not the positive side of lust, but there could also be a lust for someone that you really love too. And that just makes it more fun in the physical sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of times lust gets a bad rap because it's some guy lusting for a 12-year-old or something like, the lust is something taboo or something that's not appropriate, which makes the lust even more incredible. If you say no to a lust, it's more lust. I look at lust as Mars, and I look at the other as Venus. Love is Venus. The two parts of who we are. And I think you have to have both in a long-term relationship. There's no way. I tend to have one or the other. And most of my clients tend to have one or the other too, especially like they'll be like, oh my God, he's in bed, but I just never take him home to mom, And it's like, okay, like maybe we're supposed to, or maybe we're supposed to have both. I don't, it's seeming like that. Like young kids seem like, okay, the trend I'm seeing, first of all, is the young kids. I'm talking about my son's age and lower, and he's 27. They're whoring around. Okay. Right. Much more than we ever did. They have phones, they have sexting. They can send a nude picture of themselves. They're like posing on the internet. Like they are so advanced and seeing all the porn and all the stuff. They're like, you thought the 60s were bad. Tame to what, I'm seeing. Yep. Another trend I'm seeing is that straight people are starting to take on gay rights. And what I mean by that is, here in Palm Springs, there's like some gay resorts. They're going straight, right? Like, so I see the straight culture finally taking their sexual liberty in their own power. Whereas before, only the gay, that was one thing about homosexual and gay. They're like, we're going to fuck it, we want to fuck it. We're going to do whatever we want, period. And the straight community never had that freedom or never gave it to themselves.
Sure.
And so I'm seeing that trend happening as well.
Well, and that's the thing too, because a lot of straight people are very repressed sexually. I mean, a lot of
Oh yeah.
clients where they're not comfortable sexually because of religious aspects. You know, we all have religious, karma embedded in all of our consciousnesses. Both gay, straight doesn't matter. So
Oh yeah.
it's not just I find being a gay man. The gays who there have any sexual pressure, a lot of straight people do too, and that's why I feel like tapping into the positive pole to lust can help to understand self-expression and physical expression, so you can actually have romance. And a lot of people are so uncomfortable with their bodies, and it's like, if you're uncomfortable with your body, there's something internally within your soul that's uncomfortable too. And I think utilizing, the expression of lust and expression in the positive sense, of course, can help you become more comfortable with the body, but also comfortable with your soul expression, right? So yeah, I think it's more about us becoming more comfortable. So, like you said before, people are just being very in lust. It's like that's never the goal, but sometimes it can help with the expression of sexuality and the expression of how you want to feel free with your body and express your body sexually, and then the goal is romance, right? The goal is love. The goal is the emotional expression. Well, for some people it can be, but I think that when you find that evolution, Christopher, you can't help to find romance when you evolve, from lust in the positive way. You can help to express that romance. It doesn't mean monogamy, and we'll get into that in a minute too. We're going to talk about that.
Don't use bad words here. I'm kidding.
But it doesn't. Right? But it doesn't mean monogamy. It just means that romanticism is it's a swagger. It's a energetic essence that you get to kind of enjoy the essence of a being physically and spiritually. And that, to me, that's what as someone I'm a very sensual person. To me, that's the core essence of what sensuality really is. Is it the encompassment of both aspects?
Well, it seems like, I'm not in the bedrooms of people, but it seems like that's going away. And one of the reasons is porn. Like, I have a lot of female clients who, they'll go ahead and assume the position that we saw in porn. They'll watch porn with their man, which I was like, what? You watch porn with your man? Like, when I grew up, it was like, no, only men are dirty pigs to do that. Women, don't. Now they're watching with it. But also what seems interesting is there's definitely a desensitizing from the porn. There's also a kind of a theme of abuse, at least what I've seen. There's a lot of abuse. Like, you're like, oh my God. And there's like pride around the abuse. And you're like, I'm sorry, that doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like porn moved away from pleasure. Like, it's almost like porn taught us how to be excited for porn, but never seek ever pleasure. And that gives you this, that's the addiction, where it's just like, and you will never ejaculate, ever, so you're just constantly stuck in this realm. We have a statistic: 11% of the people in the United States watch porn daily, according to health addiction studies. Well, okay.
I'm surprised it's that low, but
Me too, actually.
But, everything is a tool, right? Because porn can be a tool for someone from help them to not be so promiscuous. Right, it can help them, kind of, in that sense, but also be an addiction where you have some unrealistic expectations. You think everything has to match the porn scenario, and be so detached and become lazy because you don't want to like groom yourself just to go out and have a good time with somebody. So I think as we mature as a species, we should understand. Okay, that's a tool. How do I want to use it? There's a good and bad to the tool. Just like social media. Social media could be great to promote your business, to express creativity, but at the same time, if you're enveloped so much in social media, it can be a detriment to your own psyche, right? But to me, I look at everything in that facet. Like, what is the empowering pole to it? What is the disempowering pole to it? And those who have sex addictions, porn could also enable more of that sex addiction and keep it more at their fingertips. But I would say to me, it exposes more of the imbalance within the individual. So we should be more conscious of why we use these tools, what can they do for us, and what can they do to harm us. And so once we understand this, then we're in control of all of that. We don't necessarily have to run away from these things, right? I've seen in relationships where porn has actually helped the couple to become more intimate with each other, and so used as a tool to kind of let go of inhibition. So I've seen it being a tool for many great things too, but also there's the addictive aspect to it. That could also we need to be aware of that, though. Well,
the addiction is on many folds. It's like, on one hand, it is the biology of it, in the sense that you're in this excitement, this hormone excitement, and you're staying in this excitement, and you're getting kind of like addicted to being in that excitement, right? So the chase is exciting. I personally don't like porn because if I can't have it, I don't want to look at it. If I can't get that, like, don't even fuck with me. So I say, like, I don't want to go there if I can't have it. I get frustrated really quick, like with that sort of thing. So for me, it has to do with my Taurus nature. But I do think that a lot of people are living in their mind too. That's the thing. So exposing too much of our own lives, I'm finding that people with lovemaking are in their heads. They're not there.
Yeah.
Like they're not there. And it's like, what are you thinking about? You know what I mean? Like the porn, I guess. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's someone else, but I think we've learned to mentally detach so much that now intimacy is growing apart, at least for this moment.
Right, but it's not just porn though. I mean, if you look at even like supermodels and people on Instagram
Oh, yeah,
trying
yeah.
to tweak their appearances, so like a lot of people are in their head because like, do I look well? And they're more self-conscious of how they're appearing, and so this is not just porn. There's a lot of our culture that's embedded in, And I also see too, like everything has its purpose, and
Yeah.
everything is in a channel for someone to expand their karma. Right. And
Mhm.
so those who are sex workers, they're expanding their karma to a certain degree and understanding how to respect the body, not to respect the body, or breaking barriers. So everything is, to me, necessary in our spiritual development. So that's why I never judge sex workers or anybody of that nature, because they're evolving in their own right. But we just need to understand as objective people, like these tools are not bad. They're not good. They're tools. How do you want to utilize them? And if you feel like you're being detached, we need to understand what's detaching us. It may not be the porn, Christopher. It could be the social media, the Kardashians, the love expectations that we're putting on ourselves to how we're supposed to appear.
I
So
definitely think I know porn is affecting us in the bedrooms, because I've watched it and I'm watching things unfold according to the script. You know what I mean? Like you can see the subconscious adoption of it. And I also feel like even now, I was talking to someone the other day and I was sharing it backstage. He goes to a bar and everyone's on an app and everyone's trying to introduce themselves through
Right.
the app. Through the
Yeah.
app. They're sending
Right.
each other messages. The person's across the bar.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I see you, which is kind of stalker like anyways. I'm right here at 44 feet, it says. You know what I mean? Like, so that's weird too. Are we losing our social skills completely?
Yeah.
I feel like it's not going to happen for very long. For one, my son's generation, they're all messing around so much, and they call it hanging out.
Right.
When hang out's a code word for it, group sex. We had a bunch of people who are hanging out. Like seriously, they're so casual about just jumping into it. And I think because they're tech based, there's like it almost is like a common language. And so if I invite you over a tech base, then we're good. I have no questions for you.
But
You're in the
that's
street.
good. And that's what I'm saying, because it's that level of accessibility that we have that makes us lose that interaction. We're uncomfortable. Like we're more focused on like how we appear because of we have everything accessible at our fingertips. Why do I need to invest in engagement? Right. So yeah, that's where it's lost its intimacy. People don't want to engage. They don't want to spend time a conversation in person. They don't want to spend time like doing some sort of activity with somebody. It's like, oh, let's go to bar, let's go have sex, let's watch a movie, and we're out. Instead, let's go bowling, let's go play mini golf. Like when I go on dates, they just want to like meet, hook up, and that's it. I'm like, no, let's go play mini golf.
Right.
Let's go camping. Let's do something. Let's engage together. And so, I don't blame porn for that. I blame culture for that level of disengagement because of the accessibility of like the apps, and you meet someone that's 2 feet away from you, and yeah, people have lost that engagement. To me, it's become lazy. It's emotionally lazy to me. It's like we can get a porn at our fingertips. We can get music at our fingertips. Now I want to get a relationship on my fingertips. If I don't have it now, there's something wrong. And everyone's in this now mentality that they're losing the essence of like evolving intimacy. Like I used to say to people too, whatever happened to foreplay? Whatever happened to
I know.
whatever
I
happened to
know.
the sensuality of engagement and the trepidation of, oh my gosh, can I do this, and putting the hand on the leg? Whatever happened to that connection, the build up to things? It's just now mentality. So it's not just porn that's done that. It's everything in our culture that's done that, and so it's lost its sensuality. And I think, when people talk about intimacy, we've lost sensuality. We're not sensual people anymore.
Yeah. I think, the 70s seemed to have really healthy sex. I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
I grew up as a kid, watching my parents have sex, and I'm kidding. But, I could pretty much, they'd walk out of the bedroom naked, and we're like, what? Like my brothers and I. But they were very open about it. There was foreplay, there was kissing, there was moaning, there was, no condoms or condoms. Like the biggest thing they worried about was, getting pregnant. That's what it was. I mean, in the 70s, it was apparently just a sex fest, and then AIDS came along, HIV,
Yeah,
right?
I'm saying that HIV came. Yeah.
That is what I think. I think actually HIV is actually what was a huge separator of people and sex.
Of course.
Everywhere, terrifying people and people not engaging where they would have engaged, where they would have been a little wild and crazy. They're not, and that was the beginning of separating from intimacy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you could see, I mean, not to sound like a conspiracy theorist that I already am.
Yeah.
If you look, you kind of see there's always something separating us. We had COVID, social distance. Now we have tech distancing
Yep.
us, social,
Yep.
So there's always been that. Like I said, I blame culture for this, So again, porn can be utilized in a good way, but because of the way culture is, now it's thrown in people's faces to rely on that more. So that's what's creating the lust. The lust imbalance for me is all those things. That's creating the lust imbalance.
Well, I agree, and I think porn creates a lust imbalance too, because you just never. It's like now I saw it with a blonde, now I saw it with two blondes, now two blondes with it. It's like people are just wanting every type of thing to check off, and they're finding and they create these fetishes too.
Right.
You know,
I've seen partners or people that talk about that they don't measure up to the porn, literally speaking, right? For some people, I would say.
so yeah.
They're like, I don't have the assets that those women have, and so I don't have the butt that the woman has, and so I hear women complain like they don't match that, so they're competing with the fantasy, so they lose their confidence. So I've seen it on that end too.
But they're not breaking up. I mean, because thank God men are still idiots with emotion. So they're staying connected and they're still using each other, even though they're off doing this crazy stuff, like because people don't get the relationship aspect of it. I think, honestly, we're also very damaged. So, astrologically, since the 80s, it's been nothing but past life stuff coming up, right?
Yes.
And as a result, we're dealing with a lot of trauma. And I think that alone, that trauma that we're dealing with, either you're attracted to people with similar trauma, which is common. So you both, like people who have sexual trauma as a kid, they tend to find each other in a room, right? There's something that engages that sexual energy again, reignites it. So people up until now have been very trauma-based, like I said with charts too, very trauma-based in what was hot, In fact, the dirtier, the hotter, the worse, the hotter, right? But now we're starting to heal. And I'm wondering if people are just sort of over it in those cases, if those are, evaporating away.
I feel that. I do feel like because the good thing about the oversaturation is we've seen it all now. So it's like, all right, I've seen it all. Like I've seen the big butts and all that physical stuff. Like I need something else now. So it's almost like sometimes the oversaturation can help us to kind of break free of it too, and I think, a lot of times, people are, I've started to see like an explosion of people like into like pain and pleasure now, like more like the whole, like it's always been. Yeah, it's always been that, like that's always been the bondage thing's always been around, but I'm starting to see like more people like they're talking about suffocation stuff and
choking out. I know,
like right and reenacting type of assaulting scenes, right. So I know it's always been around. We're just seeing it more, but like we have to understand, like this expression is unresolved karma. It's all unresolved karma, and people are expressing it through sexual expressions. They're expressing through the pain. We have to look at the spiritual karma there because, like I have a lot of religious karma that's from my past lifetimes as well in this lifetime, and there was a lot of that kind of bondage experience that I went through. And so, when I understood this in my 20s and I kind of brought out of that, took control over this, I was able to resolve that karma. So, and so we have to understand, like I was saying in the very beginning, a lot of these fetishes that we have, a lot of these, pain and pleasure modalities has nothing to do about sex or lust and everything to do about unresolved karma and your positioning of power that you have or don't have.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, karma tends to be something where your soul is basically upset over something. That's it. You're still pissed. Like, something horrible happened 2 lifetimes ago, and you're still pissed that happened to you. You're still upset about that happening to you.
Right.
Deep in your subconscious. So you want someone to get deep with, right? And I think what I see is, like, for instance, the woman who, is abused, by her father or abused by just men in general, constantly going to the abusive, partner, being turned on by being treated like shit. It turns them on. They say that it turns them on. And I agree. It probably does. Right. But there's probably a subconscious desire to heal it. But now that it's been twisted with sex, it's complicated because whatever you have to heal is also tied to some pleasure, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't even know if it does heal. Should you heal it if you're getting that much excitement off of it? When other couples won't touch each other after 2 years. So if my fetish is making me crazy and we've been in a relationship for 5 years having great sex, I ain't gonna heal shit. You know what I mean? I'm gonna make it seriously. But I agree with you. I think a lot of it is. But I've been way surprised at the trends of older, younger, like legitimized in these scenes and stuff like that. That's huge. And also the pain thing. people being abused, people being hurt. If you look on camera, you're like, I know that hurts. I know that hurts. I can't see why a person would want that, right? To have
Well,
pain.
Well, and to just dovetail off that for a moment, when I look at culture, no matter what it is, it's infiltrated. At least the collective consciousness has karma embedded about self-hatred. I mean, there's a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
self-hatred built within our human consciousness that we're all trying to evolve from. That's why it's in our culture. So we could blame the media and all that stuff, but that's just an expression where we reside spiritually, collectively. So there's a lot of self-hatred. That's why we teach self-love and preach self-love all the time. We're working on self-love. Why it's so difficult for us, because collectively, everyone on this timeline is having issues with self-hatred, and that could come from patriarchy, religious trauma, and all the stuff that I've experienced, all these other modalities. But that's one thing we all have in common is this: we're battling with self-hatred, and our culture is reflective of that. But like I said, we have to be conscious of if we're feeding that self-hatred or if we're pulling away from that. So there's a lot of sensibility that confirms self-hatred.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, a lot of self-esteem benchmarking through sex and the self-hatred. I was thinking like a lot of people I think are going on binges, like a lot of sexual binging.
Yeah.
And I think because of the apps, for one, you can literally, just like you order up DoorDash, you can order up a lover, pretty quickly. And I'm talking a free one, you know what I mean? Like people are just wanting it. But I also think that, sometimes I've had clients who openly talk about their sex life and they are just like so hungry. I can't get enough. I don't know if I'll settle down. And you look at their past lives, they've been stuck in monasteries for the last 3 past lives. So they literally were depriving themselves lifetime after lifetime
Right.
after lifetime. And so now they're like Tasmanian devil, like, get out, I'm going, zzz, and they're catching up maybe where they had, taken a puritanical kind of direction. Not only that, but also, we were stuck in tiny marriages in a cabin, on a farm, you know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't matter if she's pretty, it doesn't matter if he's pretty. It's all you got, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and now there's this like eye candy, I think, for humans to have
Right.
a lot of this. It's like what only Louis the 16th used to be able to have, what only like queens used to have. Now the average Joe has access to these things, right? These
Right.
sexual fetishes, toys,
Right.
places, locations, all of it. And so maybe just getting out of their system,
Well, that's true, because that's why I don't judge. That's like, and we shouldn't judge. Like if you're a sex worker, what your fetish is, what you're exploring. Because I love that you said your past like 10 lifetimes you're in a monastery, and so now they're trying to learn how to be primitive and be more primal with their sexuality and expression. Understand what that is, because that's a learning lesson too. That's a learning curve too. Because in order to be like free sexually, you break down a lot of inhibitions, right? Because when we have a lot of self inhibitions, if one thing we suck at is sex, it's sexual expression. So it's all an expression. So what we have to be doing is stop judging it, stop saying we shouldn't be doing this, is try to raise the consciousness of why we're so infiltrated by the same thing of, like I said, self-hatred, and why we're having issues with self-love and self-expression. That's what we need to start raising in consciousness, not judging the fact that we all collectively have shame to a certain degree,
I think people are ready for the shame to be gone. People are ready. I think they were in the closet about stuff. Now they're a bit more open and talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm finding this much more open. I'm amazed at what people talk about. I'm amazed when people will just tell me like, yeah, her, and her. Like, wow. Sometimes at once. Oh my God. Like, wow. You just never hear that before. Whereas in the past, can't get that to the priest, or mom's still so Catholic. That was still something that was restraining us. Seems like it isn't now. Here's what I can't believe. Okay, here's another thing. Zoom rooms. Have you heard of this? No, this is the latest thing. There are posted Zoom rooms where everyone is zooming in to the big meeting, and everyone on their cameras is having sex, watching everyone on camera having sex. I'm not kidding.
So virtual orgy then. That's what it is, a virtual orgy.
It's virtual orgy. It is, but for hours, and Zoom must know. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of crazy. But I'm just like, whoa. So that's getting on camera. That is completely new too. Like, as far as my son's generation, there's a whole set of nudes, and if you don't have a good set of nudes, you're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything. Like, so this whole like everyone being the porn, is something we're
And
seeing.
I think, again, to me, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, just be very transparent, and I've been very open about this. I was a stripper in my 20s. I took my clothes off, I danced, and I did fetish shows and bondage shows, and I did that. But I knew at that time, because I was always entrenched and interested in psychology since I was like a young kid and spirituality. I knew because of my traumas, the ritualistic and trauma abuse I went through and sexual abuse, that I knew doing those things, I'm like, I'm taking control over my abuser. So I got myself in the BDSM scene. I was doing performances like that, and not for nothing, I was like, I'm in control now, I'm in charge. So that expression helped me heal my trauma, because I didn't have support then, and that was my support. And once I like got that under control, I was done with it. I walked away from it, and I don't even have that in my life or desires for that in my life now to this day. I'm like, oh no, I never brought it in to the bedroom, so to speak. So we can learn, and I think people doing those, Zoom rooms, right? Whatever you're talking about. Also, I think I was also rebelling.
Scott. Don't act like you don't know.
No, I think I was also rebelling against the patriarchy and the Christianity and all that stuff. I was rebelling against too, the whole theme, and that's why I went so extreme. But I think with the Zoom rooms, maybe people are feeling less comfortable right now. They feel more comfortable to express themselves, and they probably wouldn't do that in person. But they're like, I feel more comfortable in my body to share it with other people. I mean, this has been orgies back since the Roman times. It's nothing new.
Oh yeah.
So maybe those, but maybe those who wouldn't necessarily have done that, right? In person, now they have the accessibility to express it, on a computer screen, I guess. So I just say it really depends on why we're doing it, and I think that's the key. If you're doing it because you're pacifying trauma, maybe it's not a good thing. It'll form into addiction. But if you're doing it to resolve trauma, you'll be successful. You have a great experience, and you'll evolve. So I think people tend to judge these things. What's that?
They're doing it to get off. I mean, like, it's very primal. I think it's primal sexual. I think we have freedom for the first time. Really, we have freedom for the first time. And I have to say, it's very much due to the gay movement. I think I don't think the gay movement realizes how from what I can tell with all my gay friends, it's like they were all segregated to certain bars and certain places in the city where no one wanted to go there. So like, fuck it, let's have sex too. And just did whatever they wanted. And I think what's happened is with this kind of liberal, like the last administration was really forcing us to like open up to all these ideas. And I think what's inspire people who've been, stuck and not letting themselves be who they want to be. And really the gay pride is that you love yourself no matter what you're into, and it's like business cards. I mean, like as far as your kinks. So I think it's making a big impact. I think people don't realize how we're kind of trading from different cultures and letting things come in. But I do feel, so we'll talk about where this is going to go next, okay? I think we covered almost every raunchy topic, but we need to dive in. We have a couple more. Let's take a commercial, and I think it's going to be for past lives and karma.
Perfect timing.
Speaking of past lives and karma, we didn't really plan that, but we did. We created a series last year, a 40-day program where we walk you through kind of the karmic planets in your chart with some other proprietary approaches we want to talk about. And basically through 40 days, we time them up. So on the first day is step 0. Right. So like, trespases. Step 1 is like heartbreak. So we theme every day on the day that the energy is playing. And what we found was that people could reach that part of themselves easier on that line of the day. So that was brilliant. So it kind of helped out. But people who didn't even believe in past lives, who something in them was telling them to do it, came out with a strong understanding of, I was definitely a sex worker. I was definitely this. I can clearly feel this. And they put things together. Now, we used to make people subscribe to Serious Joy for this, but now we've separated it and we're doing it for a sale. This will be $150 in the future because it's worth it. And I don't know any program that will walk you through your past life karma and your subconscious and come out knowing, without hypnotherapy, without anything. You just come out knowing. And you do the research on your own. We prompt questions to you, and you just fill out these questions every day, and your knowledge of your past life just starts to grow right in front of your eyes. But this year, because it's a debut, we're going to give it away for $49.95. You heard me, $49.95. We're giving it away. And we really are giving it away at that price. you can go to a separate place than Serious Joy. SeriousJoy.cloud is where we're hosting this. And, it's also a cool program because everyone's taking it at the same time. And so you have a lot of, sharing of notes and, people kind of in the classroom, very excited because it's a timed thing. So have you ever done anything like that, Scott?
Well, I do it myself actually.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've had 3 past life regressions in this lifetime, this incarnation. And it took me maybe decades to realize, hey, I actually be doing that for other people. So I as well, help people in their past life regressions, but also connecting the dots. Because as you know, when people find their past life, let's say journey, they realize that's why I had these irrational fears in this incarnation. That's why, So we're able to kind of like nuke those irrational fears, or in the butt, and kind of wipe them out and purge them. So it's hugely important to your spiritual process to understand where you came from. So it's so beneficial.
Totally. Thank you. It's brilliant because with Saturn in Pisces and going to Aries, and Neptune going to Aries, you're going to have easier access in your subconscious until about July. And then it's going to be hard to access this because we're going to be ego-based, the lowest part of us. Root chakra-based, right?
Right.
So I would take advantage if I were you, y'all. That's why we're doing it. I'm putting it out now at this low price because next year you're going to be interested in something else. And it'll be hard to get to that core. And once you understand your past life core, like the core issues, then yes, as you said, Scott, you're suddenly not as haunted by stuff anymore because you're like, oh, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. The fact that I was haunted, nothing wrong with me. So it's a real relief, right? A huge relief. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, so many of my clients had past life religious, damage, mostly Christianity.
I'd say almost 99% of my clients have, past life unresolved religious, trauma, and different aspects. But, that's what I was saying before. Collectively, we all have that embedded in our human species and the collective consciousness. So that's what that self-shame thing that we have. It's we're collectively on the same timeline for a reason. So that's why, I started implementing past life regressions in my work like 3 years ago, because before I would do it, I'm like, no, this is actually a process that it needs to be available. Because I've seen it help me, to help a lot of other people. I mean, I used to have a fear of blades because when I had a regression that I was stabbed in the chest 11 times, and I was a political leader. I won't get into the person. I don't want to sound one of those people that, oh, you're a famous person. But I always felt naked in my chest, and I was always, when I see knives, I would cringe and feel like stabbing my chest. I didn't know why. Had the regression relate to me a couple times as confirmation, and then once I got my chest tattoo, I felt like I didn't feel naked anymore, so it all made sense. And I was able to now understand my irrational fear for like knives being laid around. And now it's kind of like put it at ease for me that I understand that now. So
now you like carve at Thanksgiving, you're like great with knives.
Yeah, exactly. Before I would just kind of like run away, and I was always like would grab my chest like this. I didn't know why. I was just kind of just like hold my chest when I'd see knives around and cutting and stuff, and I'd feel like a pain here, and I never knew why. And now I know. It's like I don't have to do that anymore because I kind of understand where it came from. I resolved that past life.
Whenever I see it like on a movie where they jump off a ledge, I'd be like, and like I get these tingles in my legs, like like this tingling, right? And then finally I meet this guy who's random and kind of weird. But, we're watching something like that. And he's like, yeah, you remember that? I'm like, what do you mean, do I remember that? He goes, we knew each other in the past life. We jumped we got shish kebabbed on a tree. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And then would you believe, like maybe 2 weeks after that, I developed a MRSA infection in the same spot that I had been, barbecued on that tree.
Wow.
So I feel like I was releasing the trauma. Yeah. We died. He says we died on that tree. I was like, and he goes, and it's so vivid, but you can't deny it. When someone is just kind of vivid, he's like, and my head was under your ass, and like I couldn't move. It was, I was like, oh God, what a horrible way to die.
Sense. But when you have the regressions, it always makes sense. Like, oh, it's like it's illuminating. It's not like, okay, I was some weird person. It's like it makes sense. And I love the commenter here says like they won't wear turtlenecks because the neck has been broken so many times. Yeah, like you have this weird like I don't like things in my neck, and you realize I've had many neck my neck's broken many times in past lives, and then we can stop. Maybe we all have those little things for a reason. These little twitches for a reason, and they're always karmic. Always.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I think you're right. I think that if people get turned on by any of the fetishes there are, whether it's like a big age gap or being tied up, or I don't have to go through all my fetishes. I'm just kidding, but I feel like it does often come from the fact that something in you wants to relive it. I mean, all tragedy and all pain, you subconsciously want to relive it until you can change. What you're desiring to do
Yeah.
is have it not turn out the same way. And so you recreate it, not turn out the same way or not turn out the same way. And most of the time it's turning out the same way, which means that every time it comes up, you're responding to it the same way you did prior. And it's not
Right.
until you respond differently to that situation that you sort of break that chain and you're no longer as obsessed about it. And it becomes, it usually goes from like crazy hot, 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 can't get enough to, not my bag anymore.
Right.
Total
But that's
turn.
that's evolution. I mean, we're here to expand our soul through means of physicality and density. So once we stop judging ourselves and judging the circumstances, we allow our soul to expand. That's why we're here. It's more power. It's more illumination. It's more perspective on things. And then I always say we become objective and affected. That nothing. We understand why things are. We don't feel bothered by it. We have our power. That's the whole goal. And
Yeah.
so we'll do it. We'll do it through so many different things, Christopher. We'll do it through sex addiction. We'll do it through regular addiction. We'll do so many different things to resolve that karma, so we can expand out of that. So I think instead of judging our brothers and sisters, as many people in the spiritual communities judge, we need to start uplifting and help them through their karmic, journeys to help them to expand and evolve. It's all
Yeah.
about don't do this, you shouldn't do this. How about like they're doing it? Let's evolve from that. And that was Christ, Yeshua's message all along. Actually, not so much don't do. It's more like let's go through it.
Don't tell me what I can,
Find
can
your
and
way
can't.
through it.
Anyways, I mean, give me a
Yeah.
break. I think I've been repressed so many lifetimes by religion and all those sorts of things that, I came into this lifetime like an idiot. There's so much I don't know about, like, where everyone else seems to be common language. I'm like, what? I didn't know about that. But I think that, so what I feel though, just going down the pipe, is that, we're going to go through, first of all, we are experiencing low vibration orgasms, low vibration sex. Okay. Low vibration meaning biological only, organ only, right? Sensation of organ kind of thing. And we're bringing in the mind for certain things, but the idea of Kundalini sex is a whole other game, a whole other theme park that I think have even begun to touch upon, which is, and many women will know this, because they hear from them about it, because they've taken the time to study. But you're taking that energy from your root chakra and you rise it up through your spinal cord, and it ultimately releases some sort of cosmic orgasm versus just a biological orgasm. And I have a sense that we'll end up going that direction. It'll still be probably orgies of Kundalini, they'll find that Kundalini partner on an app. But I do feel like that we're going to get kind of over this level soon. Like, and then many people are over it. I can't tell you how many people go, I'm just like my mom's generation, who's all baby boomer. Like they were out having free love and free sex, and they were shirtless at Woodstock and all this stuff. And now a lot of her and her friends are like, they were over it. Take all men all together. You know what I mean? Like they didn't go to women either. They just stopped. Which so it can maybe die out that way. It's interesting where we are.
Yeah, I definitely foresee a good way to kind of button this up is that I really do feel people becoming more conscious of what they're doing, right? Not so much what they're doing, but conscious of why they're engaging what they're engaging with, and understanding, is it a suppression? Is it like I said in the beginning, overcompensation for trauma, in spite of trauma? So I do find people being more conscious of this. To me, that's the evolution, right?
Oh yeah.
And then of course, then all the other aspects that, porn, all this other stuff, addiction, drug addiction, all that stuff, those will evolve too and become a different purpose. So it is a collective shift. And I do see people become more open, more accepting, less judgmental. I mean, we've had an infiltration, especially with identity politics. And sometimes I think when you push something in someone's face, we could then bring it back and balance it out a little bit. But, the whole sex positive stuff that was like infiltrating our systems, all the, to me, I'm like, it's extreme, but it kind of needs to be, because then we start able to balance it out. Now people aren't judging people for their walks of life. They're understanding, well, they're coming from different positions in their life. And so that's allowing us to also not judge ourselves, so we can look at our own evolution. So I definitely see the religious, aspect, bondage. I see those chains being slowly broken from the human collective, as well as, the more infiltration of self-acceptance. We can say self-love all we want, but love is really about acceptance. When you accept something, there's no boundaries, there's no judgment. It's all about empowering and expansion. So, to close this, I really think that there's more of an infiltration of self-love, and that self-love is what gets expressed outwardly to those around you. And you start attracting more genuine self-love that reflects your soul expression. And so that's what, that's where all the lust and the sex and the love becomes unified and empowering. both for the self and for others too.
Well, I mean, making love is an exchange of love. If you don't love yourself, then you're just stealing love, right? You know, like I
Right.
think a lot of times
Right.
a lot of times the sexual intensity. And by the way, I mean, I've got scientific proof. If I was crazy attracted, like over the top, like just have to have kind of sexual energy, there's a fucking
Run.
karma. It's like God's just like, put this all over you. And it's like, so my hormones, they're running for not a certain type, but a certain lesson. You know what I mean? And I've
100%.
like, oh my God. So you get lured sexually to your karma. And a lot of times that turn on is that, you know, there's a release. What's one thing happens, you got all this built up subconscious energy that wants to be healed and released. And there's
Right.
the person who can actually facilitate it. So
Right.
it all turns into biological when, you know, maybe it
True.
would be excitement, you know, if we're not so primitive with our rights and ourself and sexuality. Who knows what it would be?
So true. That is so true. All my karmic experiences were impulsive. The love of
Me
my
too.
life now.
I'm like, I
the
can't
love
believe
of
I
my
did
life-
that. I just got in the car and, you know, you're like, what the fuck was I thinking? You know, like in
Right.
hindsight, and it's a past life thing. You weren't thinking, you know, you were in that subconscious.
Right. Meanwhile, the love of my life, it took us some time to nurture our connection, and now it's just
Yeah.
like it's blossomed, and it's like, you know, that's you understand the foreplay, so to speak, how it's a wind up with true love. It's a wind up with, you know, the genuine, sincere energy. It's not like this, that impulsive,
Yeah.
I have it now, press a button energy.
Well, you know, my mom, who is very progressive in this area, I have to give her credit. You know, she
Great.
sat us down naked. Her and my dad were naked about sex. Typical
Wow.
70s parents, right? Yeah, they were. I think they had just had sex, and they were like, "We should tell the boys." You know, so
Jesus.
no, I'm not kidding. And I didn't put it together until I was older. I was like, "What the fuck was that?" You know, like, but it was so natural, right? So in some senses, you know, to have that freedom early on is a good thing. You know, that you know everything is cool and everything is kosher. You know, and I'm not quite sure where I was going to head with it, but you know, because I'm thinking of my mom naked, so I ruined the whole script. But I think at the end of the day, human beings now have the freedom to explore. And with Pluto and Aquarius, anything's on, baby, as far as kink and stuff is concerned. And when we wear out this, you know, these old dogs, these old rags. This is what my mother told me as a kid. She said, real love is quiet. When you find real love, it's quiet. And just remember that it's quiet. And I was like, what the fuck? You know, she's talking. But as I've had real love, it doesn't have this like need that we see in movies. Incredible wild power, and a lot of people are avoiding relationships because like it's not crazy. I'm not really, you know, it's not exciting
right.
enough. And it's like, well, because real love is calm, you know.
It
and
is. That's balance.
Yeah, and genuinely brings
That's
about that.
balance.
Yeah,
That's balance, because if you're like, that's an extreme. If you're like, that's extreme. If you're completely dead, that's an extreme. But if you're just kind of like, when you're in trouble, it's just true, because when I feel love, I'm just kind of like, kind of small. I'm not like, yeah, you know, it's like it's this nice balanced power, you know, and yeah.
and understanding. Yeah, so that's interesting, and we'll be talking about that in the future. Well, I hope this is as hot for you as it was for us. Just kidding.
Hot.
We were,
Steamy.
that was a fun conversation, though. Some people I saw in the chat were like, "This again?" I'm like, "We don't talk about sex very often."
No, yeah, who said that?
I don't know. I didn't get the name, but I put a tracer on her. I'm just kidding. But it's all good. Oh, okay, gotcha. We have to plug a couple of things before we go. Scott, your show tonight.
Yes, tonight my live show is 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time, and talking about the art of letting go. And this actually really coincided with what we talked about tonight too, about kind of like letting go those older paradigms that might have been distracting you from actual true love. And so we'll get into that tonight. I also do like live readings too. So if you want to get a live reading with me one-on-one, you can join me live tonight too. If not, you can book a personal private session with me at scottcruzpm.com for one-on-one readings.
Yeah, great. And you guys, you're not going to get Scott this way much longer. Let me tell you. I know his astrology. He's not going to be available. And of course, I am part of Serious Joy. And we're always doing things. We got the Love and Lust report coming on down for $3.99. You click on that right on the menu. You'll be able to watch it. It generates it immediately for you. And tell me what you think. I'd love to know what you think about that, because I'm thinking about the next one I want to make and what it's going to be about. And that, of course, is at seriousjoy.com. Sign up for $3.99. You get access to the whole kit and caboodle. By the way, it's not going to always be that way either, because we're going to be dividing our site into little pieces and not giving it all away for one price. So if you come now, you'll be grandfathered in. It's a good time to be a big part of something interesting. All right. I think that's all we got, man.
It's a good show. I felt like the show felt like an orgasm. I felt like a good release. It was great.
I think we lost half the audience. I don't know what they're doing. Anyways, until you guys don't put up with the shift show, do like us and lead out loud. We'll see you next week.
Lead out loud. Bye, guys. Not good night, but good morning, good afternoon, wherever they're coming from.
I was on a little bit of a high in that topic, and the nervousness was making me, not nervous, but just not calm.
Edging? Were you edging, yeah. Christopher? Is that what you're doing? Were you edging?
No, I was not edging. Wait, what's your right hand? Yeah, it was who doesn't like sex? But spirituality doesn't talk about it at all.
Right. Or it's too fluffy. Usually it's too fluffy, spiritual fluffy sex, not really integration of physical and spiritual.
Triggers too much.
God is watching you masturbate. Jesus.